Now, to take a look at both candidates and their economic platforms, I'm joined from Irvine, California by Dan McClory. He's head of China with Bousted and Company. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rochelle.
Now, Dan, in terms of the key economic takeaways from Clinton's speech and the Democratic convention overall, what stood out for you?
Well, primarily that Mrs. Clinton went into so much detail about a very wide-ranging agenda. This was a bit in contrast to what we heard from Mr. Trump last week, but a number of topics were covered. And the other interesting takeaway is that there was a projection of continuity of the Obama administration and its agenda, which is a bit of a touchy topic considering there is so much unfinished business from Obama's agenda. So it's a little bit indelicate that Clinton is really staking her claim on continuing in that same direction.
So being that there might be a bit of stepping on toes when it comes to Clinton if she happens to take the reins, we did see that she did lay out some of her economic agenda. As you mentioned, Trump not so much. So where do they stand? How do you compare their economic agendas at this point?
Well, I think other than the fact that Clinton has gone into much more detail, we do see a theme coming through, and that has to do with infrastructure. So Clinton has jumped on the theme of replacing the aging infrastructure in the U.S. By the creation of jobs and therefore stimulating the economy, which, if we'll think back to 2008, was something that China did quite nicely to really lead the world out of the global recession.
Now let's also take a look at their reputations. We obviously know that both Clinton and Trump already had established international reputations even before this race. So from the outside, how are they being perceived in places like the UK and China?
Well, in China, I think it would be fair to say that Clinton is well known but not well liked, and that Trump is considered to be a negotiator and transactional, and therefore perhaps a little more friendlier to interacting with China. But let's make no mistake here, this is the most important bilateral relationship in the world, and these two countries have to get along. But there are absolutely differences between the two.
And why do you think there's the unpopularity for Clinton?
I think a lot of it has to do with the likability factor. Even though Trump is criticized for not being considered likable, or in some cases not being someone you can rely on, mainly because he's so spontaneous and unpredictable, I think Clinton has always had challenges to overcome in terms of being perceived as someone who's genuinely interested in the people and not just part of a political dynasty. Of course, Trump is able to differentiate himself very nicely from that. He's just a businessman that's been running companies, and he's doing this not because he has to, but because he wants to.
Right, and in terms of the business community, how's the global financial community watching this U.S. election process play out?
Well, clearly there's a lot of concern whenever there's uncertainty, and the fact that Trump continues to be ahead in the polls, I think remains unsettling for a lot of watchers and analysts around the world. I think as it relates to China, there's a very interesting dynamic at play here. I was in New York at a lunch with Newt Gingrich a couple of weeks back, and he said, you know, in Trump's potential negotiations with China, he needs to understand that China believes that free is a fair price, and they are very tough negotiators. So he's going to have his best skills at play. But I think the rest of the world would see continuity as Clinton attempted to describe it last night in her acceptance speech, and they would probably see that as being something a little more acceptable than the unpredictability of Trump.
Now, you mentioned some of the bold statements that people tend to make in the run-up to the elections when they're really trying to rally that support and often take more of a pragmatic approach once they're actually in there and reality sets in. So with that being said, how worried should the global financial community really be at this point?
Well, again, when you look at both candidates, with Clinton, she's made some very direct statements, especially last night, about steel workers and supporting people who make things, is what she was talking about today, which to me sounds of trade protectionism. We know, on the other hand, Trump, for example, is completely against the TPP. That's not something he wants to be involved in. And he said he's going to negotiate very directly and forcefully with the rest of the world. But I think it depends on where you go in the world, Rochelle, and the reaction that you're going to get. I would say Europe is much more concerned about a Trump presidency. I would think China less so, and that's showing up in some of the social media that's coming out of China right now, where Trump continues to be somewhat respected.
And Dan, just quickly, we're, as we said, a few months away from the election. So what should companies be doing strategy-wise as they brace for the unexpected?
Well, the big projection as it relates to the U.S. and China is that if Trump were to win and he has more of an isolationist viewpoint and is actually retrenching on trade, that's going to open up domestic opportunities for innovative Chinese companies that can rush to fill that vacuum. When you look at Clinton, again, she's been much more detailed. She's had a lot more time in public service to think some of these matters through. And she's going to be much, I think, steadier and much more predictable. So there is, as I mentioned earlier, less concern coming out of the potential Clinton presidency.
We'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us. Dan McClory, Head of China with Bousted & Company.